YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more 2021 NFL draft position rankings, going through maybe my favorite group of this class, the edge rushers. Going to rank 20 of them. A little closer to the draft, which is coming up. I'll tweet out a link of a spreadsheet with all my rankings, more than 20 per position with grades. So you're going to want to follow our Twitter for that. Fan voted mock draft on the Twitter as well. Other position rankings, mock drafts on the channel. So subscribe to us. We'll have you covered before, during, and after the NFL draft with all kinds of content. So yeah, any link that you're looking for, pin in the comments. And yeah, here's our Twitter. Fan voted mock draft going on at GoDallas NFL. If you're looking for the link, it's down below. And then we have, if you're signed up through our Patreon tier 3 or higher, you get all these graphics on one page. You can save these images as well, and you get early access. There's a lot more here. Even got the linebackers already on here, so check it out. Link in the description for that Patreon. Superlatives for the edge rusher group. Best 4-3 defensive end. So an edge rusher in a 4-3 scheme. Got to go Jaelan Phillips. Honestly, I can go Jaelan Phillips for 4-3 or 3-4. I think he's pretty scheme versatile. I would like him very much at the 4-3 end spot. But again, can play either. Best 3-4 outside linebacker, Azeez Ojulari. It's pretty tough, though, because he put his hand in the dirt, acted more of as a defensive end quite a bit, but also as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he has the best traits to fill that spot. Best rush moves, I'm going to go Jaelan Phillips from Miami. Most athletic, pretty obvious, going to go Jayson Oweh from Penn State. Most power, some pretty powerful rushers here. I'm going to go Carlos Basham Jr. from Wake Forest. Best motor, Ronnie Perkins just never gives up on the play. Definitely the best motor in the class, the pass rusher from Oklahoma. Best get off, I'm going to go Azeez Ojulari. This class is full of pass rushers with some, really good get off speed, explosion off the ball, off the line. Most versatile, go Gregory Rousseau, who has some good reps off the edge, inside, even at nose tackle, has some good reps there. Boomer bust, got to go Jayson Oweh. Lack of production. If that continues, bust, but he's got such a high ceiling with the athletic traits, combined with his physicality. And you kind of can see, he's not just a raw prospect. He can play. He's just got to get the production going. So that is a reason for the boom potential for Jayson Oweh. Most upside, going to go Jayson Oweh again. It's just, you just don't see this type of pass rusher every year. So that upside is there. You just got to get it out of him. Sleeper, going to go Jordan Smith from UAB. Like his length, his athletic ability. He's got good production as well. Not getting enough talk in terms of day 2, perhaps. Taron Jackson, a deep sleeper, may not get drafted, but from Coastal Carolina was kind of the main piece to that defense. Had a pretty good tape. Just doesn't really have the traits. That's why he'll drop. He played weaker competition, but he had pretty good tape, kind of bullied offensive lineman, just, doesn't really have the traits and, the athletic, the testing department, things everyone's looking for when drafting guys late, kind of going for that upside, but is a deep sleeper. Number one's no question for me. This group is so good, so tight, together. Even round 1 guys compared to round 2 guys, maybe round 3, they're pretty tight. My rankings 2 through about 7, again, very, very tight. Number 1 is clear cut to me, though. I like Jaelan Phillips. It didn't take me long. You put on the tape to see he's the best pass rusher. He's the best one right now. He has the most to his game, and he has tons of upside, which people forget. People will agree now, finally, that he is the best right now, but people don't talk about his upside. He's a former 5-star recruit, doesn't have a whole bunch of reps because of the situation when he was with UCLA. He's still getting better. His tremendous upside here. He's explosive, strong, athletic, everything you look for. Scheme versatile, meaning I think he can play 3-4 outside linebacker or 4-3 defensive end. I'm fine with either one. And that kind of goes into playing with his hand in the dirt or playing standing up. He's done both at Miami. I think he's got the best technique, best pass rush moves, great hands, strong with technique. Again, we talked about. I think he's the most pro ready, and he has upside. Injuries, different types of injuries, but mainly the concussions is what everyone talks about. But 2016, 2017, 2018. I think that's what keeps him away from being an elite prospect in most people's eyes and mine. He's kind of borderline, such an important position, in the NFL, an impact player that he's borderline elite. But the injuries, I guess do concern. I'm not as concerned anywhere near as maybe the fans, media out there, concussions. It's been a bit since the injuries too, but the concussions at UCLA, Sure, it's a little bit concerning, but they've kind of forced him to sit out. Therefore, that medically retired term. He didn't choose to retire. I think that's where people make the mistake. And then Miami allowed him to play. The NFL's obviously going to allow him to play. Players get concussions all the time. They miss, a week tops. And I'm not super worried. He could get better in terms of his inside rushing skills. I'm not really worried about it. Very, very talented. Next group of guys, pretty interchangeable for the most part. I'm going to Azeez Ojulari at number 2, the Georgia pass rusher with a round 1 grade, of course. Top tier get off. I think the best in the class, explodes off the ball. Got a very, very good speed rush and outside bend around the offensive tackle. Very athletic, has reps dropping in coverage, which is key, has manned up on some targets. Running backs come out of the backfield. So I do like that will fit, those 3-4 schemes because he's got the size, the athleticism to play 3-4, and he can, kind of drop in coverage. For a lot of those 3-4 teams will have their edge rusher drop sometimes. He's proven in terms of his production. Not too many of those guys. Really good edge rusher class, but a lot of them good traits, not really proven in the productivity department. He is, so that's fantastic. But people forget about him, too. He has upside. He only has 2 years on the field playing for Georgia, and he's a natural. He's producing. He showed up in big games, 20 years old, the youngest of the group of the big-time pass rushers in this class. He is the youngest, 20 years old, and again, only 2 years and seems like a natural. People forget that guys like Phillips and Ojulari actually have big-time upside. At the same time, they're the best right now. At the same time, it's ridiculous. Some will view him as only a 3-4 edge rusher because of his traits, his body type, the way he plays. So 4-3, there's probably a chunk or almost all of 4-3 teams that would pass on him. So that'd be why they pass on him. He does rely on his outside moves. I think he's better inside than he even thinks. You look at the Cincinnati game against James Hudson, who's probably going to go into second or third round from Cincinnati. James Hudson was actually locking him down on the outside. James Hudson's kind of on the weaker side of blocking guys on the inside. So Ojulari had to kind of figure that out, himself. When Ojulari won on the outside, it wasn't against Hudson, of course. But, so he could work on that a little bit. But he's got very good outside moves. He's got the production. Number 3, I'm going to go with Jayson Oweh. The lack of production is, a little bit concerning, but the more you watch him, you go back to watch him in 2019, you see he can play. He's pretty darn close to kind of breaking loose, and he has that size, that power, athleticism to work with. He might be the most athletic pass rusher in draft history, and combining that with the traits, the size, the power, all those things, it's extremely, extremely rare. I think he's scheme versatile. I think he can play 4-3 end or 3-4 outside linebacker, basically. I think he has the ability to drop in coverage. With those traits, I think teams will be confident they can kind of get him going there. Penn State kind of just stuck him on the left side, mainly played a defensive end role. I don't think they helped him in terms of growing his production, working with these traits. I don't think Penn State did him any, helped him at all, So I think NFL teams can. He made big plays, disruptive plays that won't show up on the box score. Again, he's been a starter 8 times, which you could say it's a little concerning. Why was he only starting, in 8 games? But I think it just shows that he has that much upside. I think NFL teams would do a much, much better job getting that out of him than Penn State did. Why passing him? Maybe you're not happy with the lack of production, lack of pass rush moves. Never really had a plan, kind of just tried to force his way, bully his way on the inside, turned his back and kind of gave his back too often to tackles, of course. So you don't like that, but there's really good rushes. There's, he knows how to use his length, his athleticism, his power. He's really good with his hands. So it's not like a guy that didn't have production and you don't have anything to work with, or you do have things to work with, but he didn't show he can work with those things. He showed those things. So I really like his upside. I think hopefully he lands with the right coaching staff because I think he could be special. He could end up being the top guy from this class, really, even though Phillips is clearly the one right now for me. Number 4, all these guys are so close, such a good class. Kwity Paye from Michigan. High motor defensive end with experience inside. 4-3 defensive end. Can move inside, had reps inside, which is good. He showcased his power, but I think that kind of limited his production at the same time. I think he came at defensive end. He had some reps, actually, I'm finding that where he stood up almost like a 3-4 outside linebacker, so I'm starting to think maybe he can do that with the right team, with the right scheme. But I'd probably prefer him as 4-3 end. I think a good mixture of power and athleticism for his, width, his power, his strength. He's got pretty good athleticism, rare lateral movement skills. Very twitchy, shifty, left and side to side. You don't really see that often. It kind of throws off the blockers, the tackles. His feet will say he's going one way very quickly. His upper body's doing another thing with his hands. It's kind of unique. You don't really see that too often. I think he's very, very good stopping the run, very dominant. Why passing him? Lack of pass rush. He's kind of in the same area as Jayson Oweh. Lack of pass rush moves. Doesn't really do anything fancy, in terms of the actual moves. He's kind of just fools people with his lower body, quickness, twitchiness. It doesn't have a whole lot of production either, but some teams will kind of view him as only a 4-3 end. Again, I'm starting to think the idea that he could play 3-4 outside linebacker, but it kind of limits the teams that will like him a whole bunch. So he's kind of in that same range of Jayson Oweh. Jayson Oweh has more of an athletic profile. Could be the difference splitting them up. 5, I'm going to go Gregory Rousseau, also in the first round. Elite arm length, crazy wingspan. He knows how to use it too. Really holds off the tackles, and that's what a lot of these teams are looking for. Because everyone knows tackles hold. You can't allow, and they get away with it, especially these days. You can't allow them to get into your chest area. Rousseau has that ability to. It's something for you to work with too, to shield those guys off as well. Athletic for his size. Doesn't really explode. He has athleticism. I wish he was a little quicker, a little more explosive off the ball, but pretty athletic, kind of chasing down, with his motor, chasing down quarterbacks. Really good when a quarterback decides to step up in the pocket or take off up the middle. He's really good at getting his back, getting back inside. I think that kind of goes with his length, and it's easy for him to reach and make the play. That really stands out, and that resulted in the fantastic production, specifically the tackles for loss department. So I think it's, worst case, he definitely helps you those ways. He's going to, even if he's not getting sacks or he's not developing, beyond his length, he's good at, in those situations. Feels like he's always around the ball. He's got great upside with that length, athletic ability. He was a receiver actually coming in to Miami out of high school, but they knew right away they were going to switch him. So a lot of upsides, fairly new to the position. Needs to add more strength, though. He has that length. He does not have the strength to match for sure. Rushes too upright. That typically comes with the 6'6" guys, obviously. And doesn't really have much of a plan on his rush. I'm going to use my length. I'm going to look for the ball. I'm pretty good at looking for the ball. That's about it. So that's obviously not good, but you got the length. You can't coach length, obviously, so work with everything else. We will see. He wasn't thrilled with his testing numbers, too, either, though. But and I wish he played this year. Really wish he played this year. But, again, the fact that he's pretty versatile, has good moments at the edge, D-tackle, at nose tackle, really, is good. You see more and more teams, since it is a passing league these days, more and more teams on obvious passing downs, 3rd and long, will put more than 2 edge rushers on the field at once, and because they want just the best pure pass rush. But it helps to have those pass rushers that are familiar with playing inside, and here's one right here. Number 6, I also have a first-round grade on, and that is Tryon from Washington here. He's been getting some buzz lately. Definitely could go in the first round, but he's a first-round talent for sure. Really, the knock on him is one good year of production. Kind of like Gregory Rousseau, but not on the level in terms of production of Gregory Rousseau. So that is a little scary. I wish, again, another guy I wish didn't opt out. A collection of pass rush moves. He can bull rush. He can rush off the outside with speed, with bend, with his hands. Could rush inside with his strength. So that's the thing that stands out to me the most. He's not at all lacking in that department. He had some good reps dropping in coverage. Washington ran kind of a interesting defense where he was kind of a hybrid player. He was a pass rusher, sometimes slash and off-the-ball linebacker. He actually reminds me in that way, but the way he rushes reminds me actually of Anthony Barr from UCLA. Anthony Barr was actually an edge rusher that would drop in coverage, a little, kind of a hybrid. He reminds me of him quite a bit, and the Vikings end up turning Anthony Barr of just pure off-the-ball guy. Tryon, I hope he is, and I think he will be, just strictly an edge rusher, but some similarities there, both of them at the college level. But the hybrid roles, I guess, could be a positive and negative because he could have, you see, I have listed not for everyone because of his role at the college level. So he's probably going to fit 3-4 teams. And then some teams may be like, yeah, we're not going to have him run that role. Are we confident, which is strictly every down pass rusher? And there's teams that will see upside because this guy, they're going to see this guy probably shouldn't have been a hybrid player. He probably should have been rushing even more, and then he could have even more production. So he could have more upside at the NFL level. And Washington didn't really rush a number of guys on your average down. So the offensive linemen were focused on guys like Joe Tryon and Levi Onwuzurike, their best players. So I think at the NFL level, let's focus on those guys. I think NFL teams can get more out of him for those reasons as a pure edge rusher. Pretty built, strong, pretty solid athleticism. Didn't test, the 40 time was fine. Didn't test necessarily that well. Not super worried, but and we talked about why teams may pass on him. So it's not a guy for everyone, but definitely can go in the first round. I prefer him with the 3-4 teams. Number 7 is going to be Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma. I love Ronnie Perkins' tape. I would not be against taking him in the first round, but there are some things that, compared to the other top 6 guys that are maybe a little more of a negative, I guess, to maybe why he goes round 2. But you watch his tape and you go, and then you go to the, I'm not a big stats guy, but you always end up seeing the stats. You watch tape and you just think the stats are just going to be ridiculous. Like he's got this many tackles for loss, this many sacks. Pretty productive, maybe not so much in the sack department, but the tape shows that he was way more productive, and that's why I don't like stats than the stats were. So I think people kind of look at the stats and say, oh, Ronnie Perkins isn't that good. No, if you watch the tape, he was very much productive, very much so. In Oklahoma, ran him on some stunts. I guess that's a positive. He's familiar with the stunts, but I think to me it's a longer trip to the quarterback. In this case, I think just rushing him off the edge purely, I think he could add more production. But yeah, violent pass rusher, strong hands, very, very strong, just drives blockers straight back. Sometimes he'll have a tight end over him and the running back will help out. He'll just blow through those guys, just run through them and get to the quarterback or disrupt and help his teammates get to the quarterback, which I saw a lot of. And we talked about a very good bull rusher. He's familiar with, I think he's good against the run. He showed that in the Florida game, especially, but Oklahoma State as well, very good against the run. So the tape, I love the tape. I love his style of play. Reminds me, Frank Clark's going to be bigger, maybe heavier. Just the way he plays reminds me of Frank Clark a little bit. So I like that. I love the tape. It's kind of telling me round 1. It's telling me this is kind of one of my guys of the draft because no one's really talking about round 1 for him. But the negatives, or maybe why you pass on him, maybe not necessarily the negatives. Everything you see on tape it just says he's a 4-3 defensive end. That's kind of what it says. Did drop in coverage a little bit. He looks athletic. Didn't test well, didn't show his athleticism in terms of the testing. His body, his frame says 3-4 outside linebacker, but the tape says 4-3 end. So there's going to be 4-3 teams that, does he have the body, the size to play 4-3 end for us? I think some of those teams will say yes, some of those teams will say no. There's 3-4 teams say he's kind of got the body, does he have the athleticism for us? He didn't really play too much of our role on tape, so a chunk of those teams are going to say, I don't think he really fits us. It really narrows down the teams. Again, he didn't really test well. I was very underwhelmed by the 40, about the broad jump, the explosiveness. Actually, Oklahoma players in general were pretty underwhelming in terms of their testing, so maybe it was just where they were testing. I really wish it was the combine so everyone had an even playing field. So maybe that's all it was. He did have a failed drug test in the recent past as well. So for those reasons, that's probably why he's around round 2. But the tape, I love the tape. I love the tape very much. I think traits, the other guys probably got him beat a little bit, in terms of athletic traits, size, prototype traits. So that's kind of the slight difference. 8th going to be Carlos Basham Jr. from Wake. I think there's a little bit more of a gap. Again, I think 2 through 6, 7 range, they're pretty close. I think there's a little bit more of a gap, even though Basham isn't too far off here. But I do have him round 2 from Wake Forest. Huge, big dude, 6'3", 274. He actually lost a little bit of weight, which is fantastic because he was weighing in the 280s range. this last year, and I thought he played better when he's a little bit lighter the year before, so it's fantastic. He's back down to 274. Pretty athletic, tested pretty well for that big of a dude. Powerful rusher, very good with his hands, knows how to use his hands. Can slide inside, very productive in general wherever he is, but can slide inside. Could play a 3-4 end role if he's on a 4-3 team. Could slide inside in obvious passing downs, have another pass rusher off the edge. Negative, why passing him? He tries to force his way inside. Off the snap, he kind of just tries to bully his way inside a bit. Relies on his hands. He's got some pass rush moves. Doesn't have great bend to him. Kind of stiff. Relies on his hands and his raw power a bit. Some teams may view him as an inside guy, maybe not be interested in that. I don't really want teams to do that. I think it's going to affect him too much. So hopefully, I think just a 4-3 team needs to draft and put him at defensive end. That's kind of what I think. Number 9, a guy that's not getting a lot of buzz here. I got him in round 2 as Payton Turner from Houston. You talk about why everyone loves Gregory Rousseau so much, his length. Payton Turner actually has, he actually has more length than him. So that's fantastic. Another lengthy guy to work with, got pretty good production. Again, I called it elite length. Tremendous get off, explodes off the ball, has crazy motor. Like, this guy's always moving around. It's hard to keep track of him sometimes. He's crazy. Very strong hands, very good with his hands. Solid athleticism too for his size and his length. He's shown improvements too. He's shown that he can use his length. He's shown that he can get better and quicker off his get off, from years past to now. And he actually has, in the past, he played inside a little bit, not necessarily a defensive tackle, but not off the actual edge outside the tackle. And I think that kind of helped his game and helped with the improvements as well. Why you could pass on him. I think he relies on his get off and motor a ton. There's really no plan. This is what I'm gonna do here. This is what I'm gonna do here. This is the move I'm bringing out. Just full speed go. It doesn't really work in the NFL all the time. It is impressive how he's able to do that snap after snap, though. There's just not too much of a plan. He had injuries starting in high school, 2016. Then he had injuries in 2018 and 2020. He's played through some injuries, so he's a tough kid. But the injuries have popped up. I think we could be talking about first round if it isn't for those injuries, because guys want to work with this. He's got good tape. He did play weaker competition, but he's got the traits you look for. He's got the production. I think if it wasn't for those 3 probably plus injuries, because I think he's played with some broken fingers as well, which I'm not worried about, which I didn't list there. I think that was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I think we would actually, even though we're hearing really nothing about Payton Turner right now, we'd be hearing maybe early second, late first if it wasn't for those injuries. So that's a interesting name to look out for. Number 10, I'm going to go Odenigbo from Vanderbilt. And the reason we're not hearing more of this guy is because he actually just got injured towards Achilles, which is rough, in the 2021 offseason. So somewhat recent. I think it was in January. So that will cause him to slide. Could slide even more where I have him graded early round 3. But that was even factored in. I think would be a lock in terms of round 2 if it wasn't for those injuries. Another guy with the elite length. He's the longest guy in the draft. Wingspan is ridiculous. Top tier strength, extremely powerful, explosive. He's really athletic for all that. 285 guy here with that length, that strength. He is pretty damn athletic. We didn't get to see him test, but he's very athletic. Very good stop and run, high motor, tremendous upside. He played 2 roles, kind of played like a 3-4 end type role and an edge rusher outside the tackle role. So that's good with the versatility. So I do like that. Better rushing inside than out as of now. I think you need to work with him on the outside. Some teams will view him as just an inside guy, so teams will be split. Do we even like this guy on the outside? Injured in the 2021 offseason, that's what we're talking about there. But the talent is still there. The traits are off the charts. I mean, these are the traits right here that you look for. A lot more upside going from Vanderbilt to the NFL. If it wasn't for that injury, we'd be talking about second round for sure. Maybe a team would be talking about him late first. But it's still, even though the injury just happened, it's still there for him. Like it's still something to work with. It's just, how long is he going to be out for? So he's at 10 for me. Definitely an interesting name on day 2, maybe even early 3 for the draft. The next group of guys, I got Joseph Asai at 11. I'm not as high on him as most people, and that's because I really don't know. I don't know if a lot of teams will know what to do with him. I think he will slide because, all it takes is some team to have a plan for him. But he was actually an off-the-ball linebacker until this past year, he played more of an edge rush role. He's got production, but if you watch, he is not a natural edge rusher. He's an off-the-ball linebacker. He plays like it. You could say he has upside as an edge rusher, and that's fine because he only has 1 year there, so that could be the case. But you look at the guys with upside, they don't really have the production. They don't have the, Jayson Oweh. You could see he understands the position. He knows how to use himself at the position. He's kind of knocking on the door. Ossai just feels like an off-the-ball linebacker playing off the edge. There was a reason Texas moved him from off-the-ball to edge, though. I think it was more of the coverage skills weren't there. So he does have upside. I just think teams will have a hard time, figuring out what to do with him. I think he's probably going to fit a 3-4 edge rush role with a lot of stunt rushes. Because a lot of his productions are rushing through gaps, like an off-the-ball linebacker blitzing almost, So I think that's where he fits. He's not going to fit a 4-3 end role, even though he did have his hand in dirt a lot, It's just tough to figure out what to do with him. He doesn't feel like a natural edge rusher. Sure, he has upside, but there's really nothing there that tells me, yes, he's an edge rusher with upside, like a guy like Jayson Oweh. But he's versatile because of experience in different spots. I'd feel more comfortable in the third round. He's talented, high motor guy, but it's tough. Jordan Smith, I got in the third round. Maybe another boomer bust guy here. Jordan Smith's got pretty good tape, pretty good production, knows how to use his length. Very good with his length. Very good ripping tackles off him and getting to the quarterback, making plays, using that length to make plays. Not a lot of strength at all. There was times even against weaker tackles where, if he didn't get to use his length on him first, they're going to get him off. The tackle's going to get him off balance. So he does need to work on that. Kind of just an outside, use my length and rip, moves. Nothing much inside. But I see a lot of upside, here. I really want a solid pass rushing team, a team that's good at developing these types of players to get him in the third, maybe in the fourth, and put some size on him. I think that would be ideal. Janarius Robinson from Florida State kind of ends up as a sleeper. No one's really talking about him. I like him in the fourth. Very strong, physical defensive end. Could slide in on obvious passing downs if you want to throw another edge rusher in there. Good stop and a run. Pretty athletic for his size as well. I think he's going to have a much better career in the NFL than he did in college. I got Rashad Weaver from Pittsburgh in round 4 here, number 14. Pretty good production, pretty strong, pretty good footwork, quickness for a guy that size. Doesn't really have the crazy athleticism, though, or the speed or anything. But will help you stop and run. Will get after the quarterback pretty consistently. Just doesn't do anything flashy. Cameron Sample at 15, another upside guy, was pretty productive. Doesn't have, a variety of moves or doesn't really wow with the moves. Just kind of uses the mixture of athleticism and power to get to the quarterback to play weak competition. But it has some upside there. I do like him at 4-3 defensive end. Pretty much all these guys, 13 through 15 for sure, 4-3 defensive end. Jordan Smith, I can see either. Ossai, probably 3-4 outside linebacker. Jonathan Cooper from Ohio State's a tough one because he's got pretty good tape despite the lack of production. High motor guy, pretty strong. I like him at 4-3 end. Just doesn't have the traits, doesn't have the length, doesn't have the explosiveness, doesn't have the speed, underwhelming with the testing. When teams draft guys around this range, they go for the upside traits. That's what they go for. Cooper does not have those. He doesn't have really the production, but I do think he has pretty good tape despite not having the production, and he got going in the bigger games down the stretch. But it's just not what teams are looking for around the stretch. Down the stretch of the draft. So he might not even go 5th, but he had a pretty good tape. So I put him up there at 16. Ellerson Smith, on the other hand, does have the traits from Northern Iowa. Just freaky long, pretty athletic. Does need to add some more strength. Played some pretty bad competition at times as well. But somebody may take a chance on him down here. Quincy Roche, the more I watch him, the more I'm kind of coming down on him, a little bit here. He had production. You kind of can create a pretty, out of his good moments, you probably can create a damn badass, damn good highlight tape maybe, but you start to watch every snap and, the plays off, I guess we can say, and that's the best way to put it, really aren't that appealing at all. He doesn't have the traits either, doesn't have the length. I think it's going to be a rotation in terms of the 3-4, but kind of hit or miss stopping a run, hit or miss taking on blockers. So it's a tough one there. What he has going for him is he's pretty quick. And he's got production. That's what he's got going for him. Dalen Hayes, another guy that I think could be a better pro than he was in college. He had a lot of reps dropping in coverage, so he has that's good to have on your resume, but doesn't have a lot of reps actually going after the quarterback, which could be the reason why he didn't have a bunch of production. But pretty athletic. He was very close. If you kind of go back, watch snap to snap, he was so close, and I think he would force quarterbacks up in the pocket, just so close to getting those sacks, making the plays for his teammates there. So he can be a guy, I think, a 3-4 team that will drop their edge in coverage. That'd be good for around the 5th round. Patrick Jones at 20, another Pittsburgh edge rusher I like at 4-3 end. A guy that was getting a lot more buzz a long time ago, but, the more you watch tape, I think a lot of sacks he got was kind of created by either the coverage or guys like Weaver, other guys across the defensive line. Pretty strong, pretty good length. That's what he's got going for him. Doesn't have a great collection of pass rush moves. Kind of gets himself off balance a little bit. Jumps in the air sometimes. I think offensive tackles in the NFL will kind of put him in the dirt. But he had good production. Again, he's pretty long. You can work with that. But there's nothing that really wows besides the production there. So I think he drops further than what people were talking about. I don't know if anybody's really talking about him high anymore. But there are other good, other solid edge rushers. A guy like Chris Rump from Duke, pretty good production, can drop in coverage. He struggles to get off blocks, and that, going against, games like Miami, for an example, just struggling to get off blocks. So how's he going to get off, in the NFL? We talked about Taron Jackson's got a pretty good tape. He's kind of in the range of Jonathan Cooper. Pretty good tape, pretty strong, just doesn't have the traits you look for around this range. Another Notre Dame guy, Odenigbo, more of a 4-3 end, opposite of Hayes. Very good length to work with, but other than that, nothing that wows, but it's probably going to get drafted. There's some other pass rushers that people tend to rank. This is just based off what I watched here, and a lot of upside factored in. So, definitely unique class. Very cool. Very good class. Very good class here. I really like it on day 2 as well, even going in the 4th round here with some upside. But that is going to do it. Let me know your rankings, your thoughts in the comments. We're almost done with these. Got to get linebackers next, corners, then safeties. Then we'll get my big board and final mock drafts, fan voted mock draft. It's rumors, and we got a lot to get to even before the draft. We'll have videos during and after the draft as well, like we always do. So join us for that. Subscribe. Make sure you follow our Twitter. That is very, very important. Link pinned in the comments for anything you need. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.